Welcome to Life Stories, where we share inspiring and thought-provoking tales that touch the heart and teach us valuable lessons. Today's story takes us into the life of a young girl named Sophia, whose seemingly perfect world hides a dark and painful truth. It's a journey of resilience, courage, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Stay with us as we uncover her emotional journey and the profound lessons we can all learn from it. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's story and never miss another tale that inspires and enlightens. Let's dive in. Sophia sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the large bay window that overlooked the bustling streets of New York. The Johnson family home was an architectural masterpiece, a beacon of wealth and success. From the outside, their lives seemed flawless, a family admired by neighbors and envied by acquaintances. Yet within those grand walls, a silent void loomed. Lisa and David Johnson, her parents, were the epitome of ambition. Lisa was a public relations executive who juggled high-stakes meetings, phone calls, and a relentless schedule. David, a finance consultant, often locked himself in his study, immersed in spreadsheets and strategic plans. They thrived on productivity but failed to see the cracks forming in their family. Sophia, just 8 years old, was caught in the quiet whirlwind of neglect. While other children might bask in the glow of parental attention, her world was defined by the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway and the hum of distant traffic. She spent most of her days alone, playing with her doll or drawing pictures of places she imagined. Her parents loved her in their way, she supposed, but their love was distant, preoccupied, always filtered through the lens of their busy lives. That Christmas season, her solitude took a sinister turn. Lisa had insisted on inviting Lucas, Sophia's older cousin, to spend the holidays with them. "Family is everything," Lisa had said, dismissing Sophia's reluctance with a wave of her hand. "You'll enjoy having someone around to keep you company." Lucas arrived on a chilly December morning, his presence filling the house in a way that made Sophia uneasy. At just 10 years old, he carried an air of charm that was unsettling in someone so young. His smile was wide but hollow, his words sweet but tinged with something dark. Sophia couldn't explain it, but when Lucas looked at her, it felt as though he was staring straight through her, into her deepest fears. She tried to avoid him, retreating to her room whenever she could. But the Johnson house, despite its size, offered few places to hide. Lucas always found her. On his first day there, Lisa called Sophia downstairs to greet him. "Don't be rude, darling," her mother had chided when she hesitated. "His family." Reluctantly, Sophia descended the grand staircase, her small hands gripping the polished wooden railing. Lucas stood in the foyer, his suitcase at his feet, flashing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Hi, Sophia," he said, leaning in for a hug. The embrace was too tight, too lingering. His voice dropped to a whisper as he said, "You know you're mine now, right?" Sophia pulled away quickly, her stomach twisting. Her mother laughed, oblivious. "Oh, Lucas, don't tease her. Go on, Sophia. Show him to his room." Sophia wanted to protest, to tell her mother that something about Lucas felt wrong. But Lisa was already checking her phone, too absorbed in a work email to notice the tension between the two children. In the days that followed, Lucas's presence grew oppressive. He was always there watching, waiting. He insisted on playing games Sophia didn't want to play, his demeanor shifting from playful to insistent when she hesitated. "Come on, Sophia," he'd say, his tone smooth yet chilling. "Don't be a baby." Sophia's world, already lonely, began to feel suffocating. Her parents, as always, were too busy to notice her distress. David remained locked in his study, and Lisa flitted from room to room, glued to her phone. One afternoon, Sophia tried to confide in her mother. She found Lisa in the living room, typing furiously on her laptop. "Mom," she began hesitantly, "I don't like Lucas. He makes me uncomfortable." Lisa barely glanced up. "Oh, sweetheart. Lucas is just a boy. He doesn't mean any harm. You'll get used to him." Sophia's heart sank. She knew her mother wouldn't listen. Lisa's words, though meant to reassure, felt dismissive, as though Sophia's feelings were inconsequential. Later that evening, Sophia tried to escape to her room, clutching her doll tightly as she climbed the stairs. But Lucas was already waiting for her at the top, his smile wide and unsettling. "You're no fun," he said, stepping into her path. "Why do you keep hiding from me?" Sophia didn't answer. She squeezed past him and locked herself in her room, her small chest heaving with shallow breaths. She felt trapped, her sanctuary no longer safe. As night fell, Sophia sat by her window, staring out at the sparkling city lights. A part of her wished she could disappear into that vast, indifferent world. She wanted to run, to escape the shadows creeping into her life. But how could she? She was just a little girl, invisible even in her own home. And so, Sophia stayed, clutching her doll and whispering prayers into the night. She didn't know what was coming, but she could feel it, something dark, something that would change her life forever. Sophia woke to the soft glow of morning light filtering through her curtains. But the sense of unease from the previous day lingered. She could hear muffled voices from downstairs, her mother's cheerful tone as she made small talk with Lucas over breakfast. For a moment, Sophia hoped she could stay in her room all day, far from his unnerving presence. But before long, Lisa's voice floated up the stairs, firm and insistent. "Sophia, come down for breakfast. Don't make me call you again." Reluctantly, she dressed and descended the stairs. The smell of cinnamon toast filled the air, and the kitchen was bright with sunlight. Lucas sat at the counter, casually sipping orange juice, his dark eyes locking onto Sophia the moment she entered. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he said, his tone playful but carrying an undertone that made her stomach twist. Sophia gave a small nod, avoiding his gaze as she slid into a chair. Lucas leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You can't keep hiding, Sophia. We're family. Remember? We're supposed to have fun together." Her hands trembled as she buttered her toast, pretending not to hear him. Her mother, oblivious to the tension, smiled warmly. "Lucas is such a good influence on you, Sophia. You should spend more time together." Sophia bit her lip. The words she wanted to say caught in her throat. She knew her mother wouldn't understand. Lisa's vision of family was idyllic, a picture-perfect narrative that left no room for Sophia's discomfort. The day passed slowly, with Lucas's presence looming like a shadow. He followed her from room to room, always with that unsettling grin. Every time she tried to slip away, he found her. "Let's play a game," he said in the afternoon, holding up a deck of cards. "I don't want to," Sophia replied softly, clutching her doll. Lucas's expression hardened for a moment before he quickly masked it with a smile. "Don't be boring, Sophia. Come on. It's just a game." When she shook her head, he stepped closer, towering over her small frame. "You don't want me to get upset, do you?" he said, his voice low, almost a growl. Sophia froze, the weight of his words pinning her in place. She wanted to scream, to run, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. Later that evening, Sophia managed to escape to her room. Locking the door behind her, she sat on her bed, hugging her knees to her chest. Her heart pounded as she listened to the faint sound of Lucas's footsteps in the hallway. He paused outside her door, his voice sliding through the crack. "Sophia," he called, his tone smooth and coaxing. "I'm not mad. I just want to play. You don't have to be scared." Her hands trembled as she clutched her doll tighter, her mind racing. She couldn't stay like this, trapped and powerless. But who could she turn to? Her parents were too preoccupied. their attention always diverted by work or social obligations. She was alone in a house that felt more like a gilded cage than a home. As the days went on, Lucas's behavior became more unsettling. He would brush her hair aside under the pretense of playfulness, his touch lingering in a way that made her skin crawl. His words, seemingly innocent to anyone else, carried an undertone of control. "You're mine, Sophia," he would say, his voice dripping with a possessive confidence that made her want to shrink into herself. She tried to avoid him, retreating to the farthest corners of the house. But it never worked. Lucas had an uncanny ability to find her, to corner her when no one else was around. Sophia's once bright world grew darker with each passing day. Her parents remained blissfully unaware, their lives consumed by work and appearances. Lisa spent her evenings on the phone, coordinating charity events, while David buried himself in financial reports. One night, Sophia decided she couldn't take it anymore. She sat by her window, staring out at the glittering city lights. The streets below seemed alive, filled with people who had no idea what was happening behind the walls of the Johnson home. For the first time, Sophia felt a flicker of anger at her parents for their absence, at Lucas for his torment, and at herself for feeling so helpless. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered into the quiet room, "I just want someone to help me." But the house remained silent, her plea swallowed by the darkness. A week after Lucas's arrival, the Johnson household saw a small but significant change. Their longtime housekeeper, Margaret, left for an emergency back home, and Emily arrived as her replacement. Emily was younger, with soft brown eyes and a quiet demeanor. There was something kind about her presence, something that made Sophia feel a little less invisible. Emily noticed things others overlooked, the way Sophia hesitated before speaking, the way her eyes darted nervously around the room when Lucas was near. It didn't take long for her to sense that something wasn't right. "Sophia," Emily asked one afternoon while helping her tidy her room, "is everything okay? You seem a bit quiet." Sophia froze, her hands gripping her doll tightly. Her first instinct was to say nothing, to push the concern away. But Emily's gentle tone felt different, like she actually cared. Sophia opened her mouth to speak, but before she could answer, a voice interrupted them. "Emily," Lucas called from the doorway, his tone sharp despite the smile on his face. "Mom says she needs you downstairs." Emily turned, her expression neutral, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a wariness. "Of course, Lucas," she said, her voice steady. "I'll be right there." Lucas lingered for a moment, his gaze shifting between Emily and Sophia. Then, with a smirk, he disappeared down the hall. Emily knelt beside Sophia, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here," she said softly before leaving the room. Sophia wanted to believe her, but Lucas's words echoed in her mind, "No one will believe you. You're mine." Over the next few days, Emily continued to observe the dynamics in the house. She saw how Lucas's presence changed the atmosphere, how Sophia seemed to shrink whenever he was near. Emily's concern grew, but every time she tried to approach the subject, Sophia would withdraw. It was late one evening when Emily heard the faint sound of crying coming from upstairs. She followed the sound to Sophia's room and found the door slightly ajar. Peering inside, she saw Sophia sitting on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Before Emily could step in, Lucas appeared behind her, his expression cold and calculating. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low. Emily straightened, meeting his gaze. "I heard Sophia crying. I just wanted to check on her. She's fine." Lucas replied quickly, stepping into the room and positioning himself between Emily and Sophia. "She's just being dramatic." Emily didn't believe him, but she knew better than to push the issue with Lucas right there. Instead, she nodded and stepped back, her mind racing. As the days went on, Emily tried to get closer to Sophia. But Lucas was always watching, always finding ways to interfere. One afternoon, as Emily asked Sophia about her favorite books, Lucas barged into the room with a smug grin. "Why are you always talking to her?" he asked Emily, his tone accusatory. "Don't you have other things to do?" Emily kept her expression calm. "I'm just trying to make sure Sophia is okay." Lucas's smile faltered for a moment, his eyes narrowing. "She's fine. You're just making her uncomfortable." Emily felt her frustration growing, but she forced herself to stay composed. Lucas was clever, far too clever for his age, and she knew she had to be careful. That evening, as the house grew quiet, Emily decided she couldn't ignore the situation any longer. She resolved to gather evidence, something that could prove what was happening. Her instincts told her that Sophia needed her now more than ever, and she couldn't let fear or doubt hold her back. Sitting in her small room, Emily stared at her phone, her hands trembling. She knew what she was about to do would be risky, but she also knew it was the only way to help Sophia. "I won't let him hurt her anymore," Emily whispered to herself, clutching the phone tightly. With a deep breath, she set her plan into motion, determined to protect the little girl who had been left to fend for herself in a world of shadows. Emily's resolve solidified with every passing moment. The signs were too clear, too alarming. Lucas wasn't just a mischievous boy, he was a danger to Sophia. That evening, as the rest of the household settled into their routines, Emily prepared to put her plan into action. She kept her phone hidden in her pocket, set to record. If Lucas had been hurting Sophia, as Emily strongly suspected, she needed undeniable proof. But as the minutes ticked by, she couldn't shake the nervous knot in her stomach. Lucas was cunning, far beyond his years, and Emily knew this wouldn't be easy. Later that night, Emily lingered near Sophia's room under the pretense of tidying up. She heard muffled voices through the door, Lucas's low, coaxing tone, and Sophia's faint, trembling responses. Emily's heart pounded as she leaned closer, her fingers gripping the phone. "Come on, Sophia," Lucas said, his voice smooth but unnervingly forceful. "You know you can't avoid me. We're family. This is just between us." Sophia's response was barely audible, but the fear in her tone was unmistakable. "Please, Lucas, just leave me alone." Emily couldn't wait any longer. She pushed the door open, her presence startling both children. Lucas's face twisted with annoyance, but he quickly masked it with a charming smile. "Emily," he said, his voice light and casual. "Sophia and I were just talking. She gets upset sometimes. You know how kids are." Emily's gaze moved to Sophia, who sat on the bed clutching her doll, her face pale and tear-streaked. "Sophia," Emily said gently, "are you okay?" Before Sophia could respond, Lucas stepped in front of her, his smile turning colder. "She's fine, aren't you, Sophia?" Sophia hesitated, her eyes darting between Lucas and Emily. Then, for the first time, she whispered, "No, I'm not." Lucas's expression darkened, but before he could speak, Emily stood her ground. "Sophia," she said firmly, "you can tell me the truth. I'm here to help." The room fell silent, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. Lucas's confidence wavered, a flicker of panic crossing his face. He turned to Emily, his voice dripping with forced innocence. "I don't know what she's talking about. She's just making stuff up." But Emily didn't back down. "Then you won't mind if I ask her again?" Sophia's small hands trembled as she clutched her doll tighter, her voice shaking. He scares me. He says things. Does things." Lucas's eyes widened, and he quickly snapped back into his manipulative persona. "That's ridiculous," he said, his voice rising. "She's lying." Emily ignored him and knelt by Sophia's side. "Sophia, you're so brave for speaking up. I believe you. You don't have to be scared anymore." The words were a lifeline, and Sophia clung to them as if they were the only thing keeping her afloat. For the first time in days, she felt a glimmer of hope. Lucas, however, wasn't done. He stormed out of the room, shouting for Lisa and David. Moments later, the parents arrived, their expressions a mix of confusion and irritation. "What's going on here?" Lisa demanded, her eyes darting between Emily, Sophia, and Lucas. Lucas didn't miss a beat. "Emily's trying to turn Sophia against me. She's making up lies and scaring her." Emily stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "That's not true. Lucas has been hurting Sophia, and she's just told me the truth." Lisa froze, her face pale. "Lucas? Hurting Sophia? That's impossible." David, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Sophia, is this true?" Sophia nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. He touched me. He scared me. I didn't know how to tell you." The room fell into stunned silence. Lisa's face crumbled, the realization hitting her like a blow. "Oh my God," she whispered, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Lucas's facade cracked entirely, his voice rising in desperation. "She's lying. I didn't do anything." But the damage was done. Sophia's words, combined with Emily's unwavering determination, were enough to shatter the illusion Lucas had maintained. The confrontation ended with Lisa calling the police, her voice shaking as she explained the situation. Lucas's protests grew louder, but his manipulative charm could no longer shield him. As the police arrived and began their investigation, the Johnson family's carefully constructed world began to crumble. The arrival of the police marked the beginning of the end for the Johnson family's perfect facade. Lisa and David watched in stunned silence as Lucas was taken into custody, his protests growing quieter as reality sank in. For Sophia, the sight of him leaving the house was both a relief and a reminder of the scars he had left behind. The officers asked questions, their voices gentle but firm, guiding Sophia through recounting her experience. Emily stayed by her side, holding her hand and offering reassurance. Though the process was overwhelming for an 8-year-old, Sophia found strength in Emily's presence and the knowledge that, finally, someone believed her. As the investigation unfolded, the Johnson household became a storm of emotions and revelations. Sophia's parents, faced with undeniable evidence of their negligence, struggled with guilt and disbelief. Lisa, who had always prided herself on being in control, found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about her family. "I didn't see it," Lisa whispered to Emily one evening, her voice breaking. "How could I not see it?" Emily, though sympathetic, didn't hold back. "You were too busy, Lisa. Too busy to notice what was happening right in front of you. Sophia needed you, and you weren't there." The words stung, but Lisa knew they were true. She had been so focused on maintaining appearances that she had overlooked the most important thing, her daughter's well-being. David, too, was forced to confront his failures as a father. He had buried himself in work, assuming that providing financially was enough. But now, with Sophia's tearful confession replaying in his mind, he realized how wrong he had been. As more details emerged, the investigation took an unexpected turn. A DNA test revealed a shocking truth. Lucas wasn't just Sophia's cousin, he was her half-brother. The revelation exposed a long-buried secret about David's affair years ago, a betrayal that sent ripples of devastation through the family. For Lisa, the truth was a final blow. Her marriage, already strained by years of emotional distance, crumbled under the weight of this revelation. For David, the consequences of his actions became painfully clear. He had failed not only as a husband but also as a father, and his choices had directly contributed to the nightmare his daughter had endured. Meanwhile, Sophia's journey toward healing began. Social services intervened, recognizing that the Johnson household was no longer a safe environment for her. Arrangements were made for Sophia to live with a foster family in California. A family carefully chosen for their warmth and understanding. When Sophia met her new foster parents, Mary and Tom, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: safety. They welcomed her with open arms, their home filled with laughter and love. For the first time, Sophia experienced what it meant to be truly seen and cared for. Emily remained a constant presence in Sophia's life. Even after she transitioned to her new home, they exchanged letters and phone calls, and Emily visited whenever she could. To Sophia, Emily was more than a housekeeper, she was a guardian angel who had risked everything to protect her. The Johnson family's fall from grace was swift and unforgiving. Their business suffered as the media caught wind of the scandal. Clients distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with a family tainted by neglect and secrets. Lisa and David's marriage dissolved, their wealth offering little comfort in the face of public disgrace and personal guilt. As for Lucas, the legal system pursued justice. Charged with child abuse and other offenses, he faced consequences that, though mitigated by his family's influence, ensured he could no longer harm Sophia. Sophia's healing was slow but steady. Her new family provided her with the love and stability she had always longed for. Mary and Tom encouraged her to express her feelings, to process her trauma in her own time. With their support, Sophia began to rediscover joy playing in the yard, painting pictures, and laughing without fear. Though the scars of her past remained, Sophia knew she was no longer alone. She had a family who valued her, a community that supported her, and a future that felt bright for the first time. For Emily, the experience was life-changing. She was hailed as a hero, her courage and determination celebrated by those who learned of her actions. Yet, to Emily, the real reward was knowing that Sophia was safe. Sophia's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the importance of vigilance and empathy. It was a lesson to parents to prioritize their children, to pay attention to the small signs, and to create an environment where their voices could be heard. For Sophia, the past would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined her. She had found her strength, her voice, and, most importantly, a place to call home. Sophia's journey was one of pain, courage, and ultimately hope. Despite the darkness she endured, she emerged stronger, surrounded by a loving family who helped her heal and rediscover joy. Her story serves as a reminder to parents, caregivers, and communities everywhere: pay attention to your children, listen to them, and create a space where they feel safe to share their struggles. Sophia's strength and Emily's bravery showed that even in the most challenging times, there's always a path toward healing and justice. Their story is a testament to the power of love, empathy, and resilience. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to hear more heartfelt tales that bring valuable lessons and hope into our lives. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.